Thank you for coming to our 12th grade parent night. My name is Michelle Pesci. I'm the chairperson of the Counseling and Student Support Services Department. Myself and Mrs. Jean Loudenslager will be presenting to you tonight about all things college applications and post-high school plans. Just before I do that, I want to introduce the school counselors on the screen here. Mr. Cobb, Ms. Marino, Dr. Valdez, Ms. Pulsifer, Mr. Mitchell, and Mrs. Loudenslager. So each of your children had been assigned a school counselor when they came into 9th grade, and that counselor stayed with them through their senior year. And we always say that this year we really get to know the students. It's so important for them to advocate for themselves, come and speak with their counselor, because through this application process we really get to know them and assist them in what they want to do after high school. We do have a 12th grade Google Classroom, so all seniors should be enrolled in this Google Classroom. But if parents would like to be enrolled as well, we did put the Google code up here, or you can ask your child to just invite you to the Google Classroom. Our PBS Office Google Classroom is really a great resource. We post scholarship bulletins, we post events, college fairs, many different things that we have going on in the department on that Google site. So just before I go over the topics that we're covering today, I want to let you know that last Friday we went into all of our senior classes. We discussed very similar topics with them, talking about the college process, how to finalize their list of colleges, setting up their Common App, going over letters of recommendation, discussing standardized tests, the SAT and ACT, NCAA for those students who are interested in playing collegiate sports, the college essay, deadlines, their records release form and how to send that out, their high school transcripts, and the financial aid FAFSA and scholarship process. By a show of hands, did anyone come last week to our financial aid night? Okay, so great, that's great. So we're going to touch on that a little bit tonight, but I know that you got a lot of that information last week. If you were not able to attend last week, we are recording all of our parent nights as well as that financial aid night. So once those videos have been edited, we're going to be posting them on our website, hopefully within the next week or two. We did a lot of parent nights the past week, so we're going to try to get them all up within a week or two. So that's a great one to watch as well. So to begin talking about finalizing your list of colleges, at this point, seniors coming back to school this September should be tweaking their college list and trying to come up with a final list of colleges. We always recommend that students have somewhere between 8 and 10 schools on average to apply to. And we say we like those schools to be falling into 3 different categories: target schools, reach schools, and safety schools. A target school would be a college where the students' GPA and standardized test scores are right at the average range of acceptances of students that are getting into that school. A reach school may be a college where the average GPA, standardized test scores are above what your child has. And a safety school would be a school where your child feels like they have a chance to get into that college. Maybe their GPA and their standardized test scores are a little higher than the average of that school. So we'll work with your children to make sure that they have colleges that fall into these 3 categories. We don't recommend that students apply to all safety schools or all reach schools. So if you have 8 or 10, just a few that fall into each category that way. We also provided students with the SUNY admissions profile and CUNY admissions profile. When we post this online, all these links will be live so you can click them. But the SUNY and CUNY admissions profile just give you a snapshot of what our SUNY, State University of New York, and CUNY, City University of New York colleges are looking for. So they'll tell you what their 2023 graduates averages and SAT scores were, so you can kind of get a good idea of where your child falls in the range of those schools. We use a lot of different programs to come up with this list, one of them being a program called Naviance. Naviance is a web-based program that we've used with your children since 7th grade. So we started with them doing career interest inventories. Then we did some college searches with them as juniors, and now as seniors we're using this program to kind of finalize their college list and eventually send their transcripts and letters of recommendation out through this program. All of your children have access to it. You would also have access to the program if you like. They sign on using their Google accounts through school, and that's where they can go on and continue to do college searches if they feel like they need to, and talk to their counselors about finalizing their list. There's also a few other websites on the screen that you can refer to. Niche.com, College Data, and College Majors. They're all great websites as well that you can utilize to kind of come up with your finalized college list. Other ways to do so would be to tour campuses or virtual college tours. Virtual college tours are available for a lot of schools, so if you visit a school's website, you can get an idea of what the campus is like, but I really believe that you don't get the great feel of the school unless you go visit. And sometimes it's hard to visit schools that may be away, out of New York, but if you go visit some local schools and just get an idea of what you're looking for on a campus, that's also really helpful to bring back to your school counselor, just to let them know what types of colleges that you're interested in. I know Mrs. Ladensliger's been to many schools. So if your child went to a local college and said, I really like what Hofstra University's campus is like, she'd be able to recommend schools that are maybe out of New York State that feel similar to that too. So even if you feel like you can't get away and go visit some campuses, try to get to some local schools as well. You can go online and schedule a visit. They have open houses. You can schedule tours. So that's a great way to kind of finalize your college list. We also have a district college fair coming up on Monday, October 2nd. We host it as a district at Sewanaka High School. This year, I'm really excited to say that we have over 150 colleges coming to Sewanaka High School. It's one of the largest that we've had in a few years. So if you are still kind of trying to finalize your list of schools, every time you go to a local college fair, the representatives that are there are typically the representatives that are reading your children's applications. So they're our regional admissions counselors. So 6 o'clock on Monday, October 2nd, you don't need to sign up. If you are attending, I would suggest to get there at 6 o'clock because it tends to get very busy afterwards. But that would be a great way to meet admissions counselors. And a lot of the smaller private schools, they are interested in your interest. It's called demonstrated interest. So students that come visit them, students that come to college fairs and talk to them, they keep track of that as well to see how interested the students are. There's also community college fairs, SUNY college fairs, and there's a fall college expo. I believe it's the day after our college fair, at Tuesday, October 3rd at Adelphi University. So if you can't make it to the Sewanaka Central High School District College Fair, the following evening at Adelphi University is the Nassau Counselors Association College Fair. If you visit their website, you can go on and register for that one as well. And lastly, attending open houses, in-person information sessions, and virtual tours to show your interest. We have many colleges that come to New Hyde Park. We've already started. We've had several to visit us already. And they come here to meet with our students to just give them information about the school. So your children are getting information through Naviance about which colleges are here. We had Boston University here yesterday? Today? Yesterday, we had Scranton here a couple of days ago, and every day we're having more colleges come in. So we've encouraged the students. You can go home and talk to your children about this, but they should be checking their Naviance account. They can sign up. It's not an interview, it's just an information session about certain schools, and this is a great way for them to meet the admissions representative in our region, and also ask specific questions like about their major, about the campus, etc. So these are all ways for students to finalize their list of schools, and this is something that we're working with them now. After we went into the classrooms last Friday, we had asked all seniors to create an appointment with their school counselor for a one-on-one college appointment. Our classroom presentations were kind of a broad overview to all students of what they should be doing, but we also meet with every single senior individually at least once, most of the time, it's numerous times, to go over the entire process with them, make sure that we are meeting their needs, helping them with their applications. So if your child hasn't made that appointment yet, when you go home this evening, you can ask them about it. So they should have already scheduled that appointment with their counselor. So I'm going to turn it to Mrs. Loudenslager. She's going to start talking about application types and the rest of the college application process. Thank you.
Thank you. Back on that college, like the visits we get from college representatives, in the Naviance, in your child's Naviance account, under the college tab, there's a drop-down box that says college visits. And they can sign up for those college visits. The dates and the different colleges that are coming are all listed under college visits, and they can sign up right there. And then they check in in the school counseling office the day of the appointment, and they get, if they have a class that period, they will be excused to meet with the college rep. Today we had Iona College here. I had 2 students come down to meet with the rep. And it's just a nice way for the reps to get to put a name with the face, and you can ask any questions. It's just a great opportunity for them to meet with the college representatives. All right, so these are the different application types. The most commonly used is the Common Application. This summer we ran 2 Common App boot camps in August, and we had over 150 students come and create their Common Application. The Common Application is accepted by over 900 colleges across the country, so it's the most commonly used application. There are a few schools that are not on the Common App. The CUNY schools, specifically the city universities of New York, like Queens College, Baruch College, York College, Brooklyn College, they have their own application at the CUNY site. So when your students got a similar presentation on Friday, and all the links were in it as well. When we put up this PDF, all the links to the different application sites will be there. So the CUNYs use their own application, and then there are some SUNYs that are not on the Common App. Most of the SUNY colleges, the State University of New York colleges, are on the Common App, but FIT happens to be one that does not take the Common App. So you would have to create, if your child was applying to say FIT, they may have to create a SUNY application as well. But the majority of SUNY schools are on the Common App, and we recommend that if they're applying to SUNY schools, such as like Binghamton, Stony Brook, Geneseo, Oswego, Oneonta, all the SUNY schools, they do it on the Common App. All right? The Coalition App is really not used as much. It was introduced a number of years ago, and just with how popular the Common App and how easy the Common App has made it, a lot of schools are not using the Coalition. So we did the Common App boot camp, and we created the Common App with a lot of our students, and those who weren't able to attend due to conflicts or vacations, when we meet one-on-one, if they haven't created their Common App, we will certainly help them create their Common App. I ran like a mini Common App boot camp last week with a few of my students that weren't able to make it over the summer. Common App links with Naviance, so we have to match their accounts when we create their Common App to their Naviance account, and that's how we send all of their documents to the colleges. We will send their transcripts or letters of recommendation through Common App, through Naviance to the colleges that they're applying to. So the Common App, once they create their account, they can add all the schools in that they're applying to, and they save under their My Colleges tab. The main part of the Common App, which gets sent to all the colleges, includes these sections: the profile, family, education, testing, and activities section. And then there's one required essay on the Common App, which all the students have the essay prompts. There's 7 different prompts. They have to choose one that they have to write. Some of the English teachers are working on the Common App essays in class. We also went over the prompts with them during the boot camp, and we had one of our English chairperson was at one of them. He kind of gave them a synopsis of writing your college essay. So they've gotten a lot of information about the Common App essay, and many of them worked on it either last spring in English classes and are continuing to work on it this fall in their English 101 or English 12 AP classes. In addition to the Common App essay that's required for all the colleges, some schools have supplemental essays. So if you ask your child to show you their Common Application account, when they add schools that they're interested in applying to, and you click on the My College section, those schools should appear there if they've added them into their Common App. And each school has an individual section of questions that need to be answered that are specific to that college. So if a school has a supplement essay, it'll be listed in that section of the My Colleges on Common App. So some of the more selective, more competitive schools will ask for a supplement essay. Many schools do not, but some of the more selective, more competitive schools or some of the more competitive programs within a college may require supplemental essays. So that's something you really want to look at now, because deadlines are beginning to approach, and there might be some additional essays that they need to write. As far as letters of recommendation, when we met with your students last year in the spring, we talked about requesting letters of recommendation from 2 different teachers, and then we showed them how to also request them through Naviance. So they should have asked them in person in the spring, and then we gave them teacher recommendation request forms that they were to fill out and give to their teachers, giving them additional information that they may want included in their letter of recommendation. And we also asked them to maybe attach a list of their extracurricular activities or a resume. And then we showed them during the Common App Bootcamp how to request through Naviance. Most of them have done this already, but if they haven't, they also need to request for the letters through their Naviance accounts. And it's always nice after the fall to just maybe write the teacher a little thank you note for taking the time to write their letter of recommendation. Okay. Any questions about the letters of recommendation?
When the letters of recommendation are written, will we be able to view it, or it's going to be on?
So part of the Common App, when they create their account and then they match it to Naviance, they have to complete something called the FERPA. And we did this with most of our students. It's like the Family Education and Privacy Act that's giving us access to release their transcripts and letters of recommendation to college. And it's also asking the students to waive their rights to see their letters of recommendation so that the colleges know when they get the letters that they're like candid and truthful from the teachers, that the kids haven't seen them first. So they will not be able to see their letters. Most schools require 2, some schools only require 1. It depends on the college. Some colleges, some of the larger state universities or out-of-state universities don't even want us to send letters of recommendation. It really depends on the school. Some specific programs, like STEM programs or medical programs, may have requirements like where they want 1 letter has to be from a science teacher, 1 letter may have to be from a math teacher. So they have to look closely at the different schools they're applying to and what the requirements are. Okay. As far as deadlines, these are different: early decision, early action, rolling admissions, regular admissions are all different ways of applying. Some of this might be a review, but early decision is a binding admissions application. So if your student is applying ED, it's got to be their #1 choice, no matter what. If they get in there, they definitely want to attend that school. Because once you're accepted, it's a binding agreement. The parents have to sign, the students have to sign, the school counselor has to sign. So you have to be 100% sure. It does give you a slight advantage in the admissions process for some of the more selective schools. If they have ED, it is slightly to the student's advantage if they go ED, but then it's a binding agreement. So if you're concerned about finances or scholarships, or you want to kind of see where they get the most money from, then ED would not be the plan that you would necessarily want to choose. The only way you can really break an ED decision is if you just can't come up with financing for the college. So ED usually is the November 1st deadline, and then what happens if you apply to other schools, early action, and then you do that 1 ED application, if you get accepted, you're supposed to withdraw your other applications and commit to the school you've applied early decision. Early action is also an early application deadline, usually again around November 1st. Some schools have some early action deadlines that they've moved up to like October 15th. I'm just going to mention, like, Stony Brook has always been a January 15th deadline, rolling admissions up to there a little bit, but they now have a October 15th early action deadline. So from year to year, sometimes these deadlines can change. And also there are some schools have an ED2, like, so if maybe in the first round a student didn't get into their first choice ED1, some schools also have an ED2 in the second round of admissions that is usually either a January 1st or January 15th deadline, and that also is binding. Rolling, early action also, like if it's a November 1st deadline, you'll usually hear by January 1st or January 15th of the admissions decision. Some schools will let you know in December, but usually by mid-January you'll know if you've been accepted for early action and/or early decision. Rolling admissions, Rolling admissions start right in the beginning of the school year. They're reviewing applications and accepting students. Some, colleges across the country. So if a school has rolling admissions, I would encourage you to apply on the earlier side, because as the admission cycle continues, the classes may fill up. So it could get harder as the admission cycle goes on. So I would encourage you to apply early. And then regular admissions is typically around January 1st, and you get your results sometime in March, usually mid of March. We will be hosting OnSite Admissions again this year. We do host OnSite Admissions with all of the local colleges. We'll be making announcements in 12th grade. We usually go into English classes to make announcements. We've just completed scheduling them. They're going to be beginning in early November and running through early December. And these are great opportunities for the local colleges for students to apply. They waive the admission fee, and it's a good interview practice. So we will give the criteria for these in classrooms. We'll hand out a flyer with all the schools that we're doing and what the minimum GPA is and what the minimum SAT is if you want to release your SAT scores. And then you will have to submit the application by a certain date through the Common App, and then we'll provide the admissions reps with their transcripts and letters of recommendation, and they'll review them right on the spot and give them an admissions decision. So like I said, we're doing this with Hofstra, New York Institute of Technology, LIU Post, Malloy, Delphi, Mount St. Mary's, and St. John's. And some of the schools also offer scholarship money on the spot at the on-site admission stage. So it is a nice thing for them if they're interested in going to some of the local schools to participate in, and also gives them just some interview skills, practice with interviewing. And it's not a stressful interview. They're going to ask basic questions, what they're thinking about studying, what has been their, what have they enjoyed about high school, basic, questions about their high school experience and what they plan on doing after high school. Any questions about on-sites? And we'll also post all of this in the Google Classroom. We'll give out handouts, so your students will be fully informed of all of these dates. All right, standardized testing, the SAT and the ACT. I'm sure at this point most of them have sat for an SAT or an ACT, either in the spring, or I know a few of my students got into August SAT, may have traveled to Connecticut or New Jersey, but I know some were able to get into that date as well. We are offering the SAT this fall in November, but it's also offered in October as well. But I'm going to show you the dates in a second. Many schools are still test optional again this year, and this link to test optional schools gives an updated list of all the schools across the country that are still test optional. Some specific programs at colleges may require SATs depending on the program, but most schools still have a test optional policy. I think it's important if your child or you have any questions about whether their scores should be released or not, that maybe you give us a call or we'll sit down with your child and discuss if we think it's a good idea for them to release their scores to schools. I mean, rule of thumb, like if they're in the top 50% of mid-range schools for the college that they're applying to, I would encourage them to send them. If they're below the 50, the mid-range scores, I would encourage them not to send them. So, you can, if they're applying to say 10 schools, they may send them to 3 or 4 and then not send them to the others. It will depend on the individual schools. Okay? And on the Common App, there is a question like, are you planning on, would you like to report your SATs on the Common App? You can either check off yes or no and self-report, or you can choose to report them or not report them, and like I said, we can help you make that decision if you're with some of the schools that you're like unsure of if you should release your scores or not. Most of the colleges will super score, so like if you've taken the SAT twice and your critical reading is higher in one test date, but your math is higher in another test date, you can send both scores to the colleges and then they will super score. Majority of colleges super score, but there are a handful that do not. And there are some schools, like if your child has any interest in any of the Florida State schools, like Gainesville, University of Florida, Florida State in Tallahassee, like University of Southern Florida in Tampa, all of the Florida State schools still require SATs. They were never test optional. There are a number of schools that, like I think Auburn University now requires SATs. So some schools have adopted back to having required SATs or ACTs. Majority of schools are still test optional. Any questions about SATs, test optional?
If you've taken the SAT several times,
Yes.
would you submit all, let's say 3 times, you submit all of those scores and then the colleges will take, or how would they decide?
With the SAT and or the ACT, you can only, your scores, you get 4 free score reports if you put the schools in before the test date and they're sent automatically, which most students choose not to do because they want to see their scores first. So if you're sending them after the fact, after you get the scores back, when you go into your College Board account or your ACT account, there is a tab for releasing scores to colleges. And then they ask, which scores would you like to send? You have to send like a full test date. Like you can't say, I'm just going to send the critical reading from May and the math from October. You have to send the full test date. But if they've taken them more than twice and you're going to use a score choice from 2 different exams, I would only send those 2 dates. Don't send the 3rd exam and all the scores are lower. Okay? November 4th. On the Common App, under the testing section, it asks any future test dates. And you can put the future test date, and then they know that you might be sending scores. So, and usually, like, the November score, any of the scores come out, like, in 2 weeks. The students are able to see their scores 2 weeks after the test date. So, they'll have time to receive the November as well, for November 1st deadlines. Okay? So these are the test dates for the fall. Like I said, we're offering the November here, November 4th. The registration deadlines are posted. So it's coming up if you haven't registered for November. And the late registration is still open for October. I mean, you have to pay an additional fee. But if you wanted to still register for the October, you could. December, unless you're going regular decision with a January 1st deadline, December is late to take them. I mean, it's fine for regular decision, but it is late for early action in November 1st deadline. It is a little bit late for that. Sometimes students will take the December if they feel like maybe it might open up the door if they score a little bit higher for more scholarships. Then they might want to sit for December if they're right on the border of scoring in the range that might provide a little bit more scholarships in them. These are the fall ACT dates in October. We're not offering the ACTs here, but a lot of the local high schools are, but October 28th and December 9th. All right, NCAA is, for anyone looking to play Division I or Division II athletics at the college level, you have to be approved through the NCAA, and they have certain requirements. As of January 2023, NCAA has adopted they're also test optional, so you don't have to use your SATs in being eligible to play at the college level at Division I or II. They have some academic requirements. Division I think, is a 2.3 core GPA. Division II is a 2.2. And that's the link to the eligibility center, and there is a fee of $100. You do not need to go through NCAA to be eligible for D3. It's only for D1 and D2. And they require 16 core courses. So if you are thinking of playing, your child is thinking of playing D1 or D2, they should meet with their counselor just to make sure that they have all the requirements. Initial transcripts were handed out on Friday when counselors went into English classes. So we had asked the students to review them carefully, look over their personal information, the courses they've taken, the grades they've earned, the region scores that they've earned, and if they have any issues or they have any concerns or they want to just double check, to please come down and see their counselor by the end of the day tomorrow. And then official transcripts will be released soon. The transcripts that they received had a weighted and unweighted average on the top. We are now no longer ranking, so only the number 1 and the number 2 of the class will be ranked, and then we won't be ranking, which is really to their benefit. We're one of the last districts on Long Island to still rank, but most districts have given up rank. Their rank will not be included on their transcripts. All right, so as they're working on their applications and they're ready to start submitting applications, we are using a Google Form records release this year. So every single time they want to submit an application, 10 days prior to the due date, they must submit this college records release form. We went over it with them in the classrooms on Friday. We posted it in the Google Classroom. It asks a number of questions about where they're applying, who their counselor is, what their intended major is, if they plan to release their SAT or ACT scores, what their deadline is, how they're applying, are they doing early action, early decision, rolling admissions, what letters of recommendation they would like us to send. So some students have asked for 3 teachers to write letters of recommendation. They might have programs that require more than 2 letters. If it's a school that we can only send 1 letter to, they have to let us know what would be the first letter they would want us to send. For example, Binghamton only allows us to send 1 letter of recommendation. So whatever teacher they list first is a letter that we're going to send. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Okay. So those record release, you have to do 1 per school, and they need to be done 10 days prior to the due date. So if you have an October 15th deadline, it has to be done by October 5th. Any November 1st deadlines have to be done 10 days prior. All right, so it's coming up. And I just want to stress that once students start submitting their applications, it's really important that they check their emails regularly. So once you submit an application, they're going to get an email notification that they've received your application, and there's usually like a prompt to log into the portal for that specific school. And that's how they tend to communicate with students, is through their portal. So it's really important once they submit their applications that they check their emails regularly. All right. Some schools, in addition to us sending the official transcript, they require students to fill out a SOAR report. It's called a student, where they have to report their own their transcript themselves in a separate portal. And if you don't do it, then they won't evaluate you for admissions. And that's some of the larger state universities that require that. Like Delaware requires that. South Carolina requires that. Auburn, a lot of the big southern universities require that. So it's just they really need to be on top of their emails. All right, the financial aid. Does anyone have any questions about that? About submitting applications?
I couldn't really hear you. What was the deadline date? You said it has to
10 days prior to their due date. So if it's a October 15th deadline, it would have the records release form has to be filled out by the 5th. If it's November 1st, 10 days prior. Okay? And we're also, prior to the holiday vacation, we're going to give the kids a deadline that they have to submit their applications by. It's usually like by the end of the first week of December, just so that if they have a January 1st deadline, the day before break, we're not having, thank you so much, we're not having like 100 applications logged in the day before we're leaving for holiday break. So we will let them know by, say, December 10th, any January 1st deadlines, you need to fill out a records release form so that we can prepare and get them done before the vacation.
And you can fill the records release form out before you actually submit the application. As long as it's loaded in the student's Common App, it's fine. We just need that time because each counselor has between 50 and 60 seniors. And if they all have a November 1st deadline and submit that form that day, there's no way for us to process all their transcripts and letters of recommendation to get them to the college on time. So if they know their deadline, they give us 10 days notice, we can feel confident that all of their documents will be received by their college by the college deadline.
And as she mentioned, so you don't, when you fill out that records release, you don't have to submit on your end. They don't have to submit their application on that day. They have time. They have up until the deadline to submit. But we just need to have a record that they're applying for that deadline for that school so we can send their supporting documents.
And one
But
other thing about deadlines, I don't suggest that students wait till the absolute deadline to apply. There have been situations such as the CUNY application, for example. The deadline is a certain date at 11:59 and students were trying to submit at 11:55 and their portal was so busy that they couldn't submit them. And that's it. If you don't get your application in by the deadline, you miss that deadline. There's no second chances or calling a college and asking if you could please have another chance to submit after that deadline. So if your child has a November 1st deadline, I know that it's a lot to do before those dates, but we encourage and please encourage them maybe at least a couple of days before the deadline to submit their applications.
And CUNY, they have such a high volume of applications. If you they will not accept late applications. And the CUNY Macaulay Honors Program. So CUNY has, you can apply for general freshman admission, or you can apply for Macaulay Honors. Macaulay Honors is a full tuition scholarship program. It's highly competitive.